To go. Hey, there it is.
There it is.
Okay. Super. Well, I think we will, if everyone can mute themselves, we will get started in just a minute. Give folks a chance. Ori, do you want to play us a song to get us started while we're waiting for folks in case they're having difficulty logging on? Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, I'll see. This is
Little intro music.
okay. This is the first movement of the Handel Oboe Sonata. It's the first one.
Well done, Ori. Thank you. I'm sure all of you know, this is our opportunity to do a little Q&A with the seniors since they didn't have the opportunity to present their projects in a public forum this year. I hope you've all had a chance to look closely at the Senior Project website. It's quite an accomplishment. They really rallied around the new format and in difficult circumstances produced a really great display of their work that we can all come back to regularly. So congratulations, seniors, on adapting to a really difficult situation. So yeah, I would love to begin by having the students introduce themselves, if they would. Beginning maybe with Ori, since she just played that lovely piece for us, and just tell us your name and just a little intro to your project.
My name is Ori, and for my senior project, I learned the oboe, or tried to learn the oboe.
All right, Mia.
Hi, my name is Mia, and for my project, I wrote a novel over the course of 30 days and continued editing it after the time period was over. But
Great. Darby.
Hi everyone, I'm Darby. For my project, I created a portfolio of written work and I explored freelance journalism.
Awesome. Ananya.
Hi, my name's Ananya, and for my senior project, I created a political website encouraging and educating young voters on social and political issues.
Great. Ellie.
Hello. I did a bunch of concept art based on an idea I had, I guess inspired by a dream from a while back, which was really fun.
Great. Sydney.
Hi, my name is Sydney, and for my senior project, I studied photography and film development. So I learned how to develop my own film at school with some of my lovely teachers who are also my mentors.
Great. Phoebe.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. For my senior project, I basically studied the health effects of e-cigarettes with the help of Neil Alexis and Elise Hickman. And I was able to actually observe lab work and then also outreach events, and then finally create a lesson plan.
Awesome. Izzy.
Hi, I'm Izzy. For my project, I started learning stenography, which is just like shorthand typing.
Great. Did I miss anyone that's logged on right now? Any seniors? All right. Okay. First question what's that? Oh, Isabella, there you are. Hi. Thank you, Isabella. Please.
Hi, I'm Isabella, and for my senior project, I did like fashion in several different ways, so like designing clothes, making clothes, and posing photo shoots.
Super. Thanks, Isabella. Okay. So the first question is for anybody. So you guys are just going to have to work together here to pop on a little bit, take turns answering. But one of the first questions submitted was, have any of you continued to work on and practice the focus of your project since you completed them in the spring?
I'm Sydney again. I have, because mine's photography, and I've been able to take pictures of my COVID pod and nature around me, so that's been fun to keep up with.
Great. Anyone else staying active with their projects?
Yeah, I am.
Go ahead.
It's okay, or you can go.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I've actually started my project far before the senior projects began. Not the book itself, but writing in general. And I've definitely been continuing both with random writing and finishing up the plot of my novel.
Someone wants to know, Mia, do you need an editor?
Eventually, potentially, most likely not, because I already have an excellent volunteer who's looking pretty smug about it.
I can't see your mom, so I can't tell. Ori.
Yeah, I've also continued to play oboe. The other day, my sister and I did a piano oboe duet, which was fun. And then I also have a new teacher who I'll be studying with online.
Awesome. Now, is this a change? Are you changing directions completely, or are you still keeping up with the violin as well?
Oh, I've kept up with violin as well.
Great. Yeah. Anyone else still working on theirs? Darby, what about you? Let's hear from you, Darby. I know you're not planning to leave your project behind anytime soon.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I've kept up. I'm trying to write more regularly. That was a big part of my project, so I'm definitely trying to continue that. And I'm looking into doing some more freelance work, especially over the next year. Over my gap year, I'd love to do some more freelance journalism projects.
Awesome. That's great. So shifting gears just a little bit, and maybe Ellie, we can start with you answering on this one. So obviously the online platform has been very different than what, we initially anticipated when you proposed your senior projects last year, and even going through most of the year. Did this, how was it changing to this new medium for you? Did you like it? Was it liberating, or did you find it sort of constricting and difficult to present your work in the online format?
I personally preferred it. I'm not much of a public speaker, so that was nice too. And also being able to really prepare a website so that how people would see the things that I've done is really constructed in the way I kind of wanted it to be shown. So that was really nice.
That's great. Phoebe, what about you? You put some extensive work into developing your web pages. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Well, I was looking forward to the senior project presentations that were going to be in person. So that's why I decided to create a video of me actually presenting what I would have presented in person. And so that was a big part of my webpage, in my opinion. And then the rest of my webpage was basically just explaining what I'd done, and then also my research paper and lesson plan were attached to that.
Awesome. Now, Phoebe, since yours was based around research, were you planning to do a research paper even before I forced you to do one?
I hadn't really thought about it before. I honestly don't know what would have happened if you hadn't forced us to.
Encouraged you strongly to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone want to talk about the sort of the senior project process overall? What it was like to first think about what kind of a project you wanted to do, second, propose that and have it be accepted, and then third, sort of be working on it for such an extended period of time? What about you, Mia? I know you vacillated a little bit in terms of what you were actually going to focus on in your project.
Yeah, that was a long process. I started wanting to write a novel last spring, but I planned like a 150,000 word monster, which was ridiculous and had zero plot, and absolutely nowhere to go. So I dropped that pretty quickly. And I guess the biggest challenge, this would probably be important for rising seniors to know, is I felt pressured for my project to relate both to my career and to be something that I would actually use later in life. Like, I didn't feel like it could just be a hobby that I would enjoy. I felt like it had to serve a purpose, and somewhat like school. So that's what pushed me towards Java, which was a mistake and not really enjoyable. It was basically like signing up for a course that you feel like will be informative and useful, but you're already kind of dreading it before you even go to class. And yeah, it was not what I had hoped. It was what I was expecting, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So I ended up basically having to let go of the concept that the project has to be a professional and useful idea, and just kind of embracing the fact that it can be something just for fun, something that you can enjoy. And once I did that, it actually did become a professional and useful idea, which was what I wanted in the first place. But I had to basically be able to embrace it as a hobby and as something fun first.
Awesome. Thank you. Isabella, I know your project was something that came out of one of your long-standing sort of passions. So maybe talk a little bit. Did you have trouble because you maybe because you knew this is what you wanted to do, and then all of a sudden you were doing it, and that brought some unexpected challenges?
Yeah, so my senior project didn't relate to my 8th grade project. I saw someone ask that. But it does relate to something I found I loved in 8th grade, which was fashion. specifically for myself. And then for my internship, I studied vintage fashion, worked in vintage fashion in California. And so that's really like, after that internship, I knew what I wanted to do for my senior project. So when they asked for the like summary of what we wanted to do, I just sent that right in. But the like turn happened when I started it, and I was just like letting it unravel. I didn't have any like ideas about what it was going to turn into. And then it took like a totally different path than I thought. So instead of, originally I wanted to make around like 5 to 10 garments and do a runway show. And then a little ways into my project, I realized I didn't really want to make that many clothes. I wanted to like style. So that's how the 3 photo shoots emerged. And I styled models with clothes that I already had. So that was my twist.
Awesome. Can you show us the piece that you have set up behind you there real quick?
Yeah, so fashion very much has, I've continued working on it after a senior project, maybe even more so. And I definitely know like I want to do this as a career. I want to like make my own brand. So this is one of the pieces I've created since the senior project deadline and just for quarantine. This is a Mother's Day present for my mom, made from scratch patchwork jacket.
That's awesome. We should have had Julie model it for us. Izzy, your project was one that's was a potential career possibility. Can you talk a little bit about how that unfolded and sort of, I don't know, how you landed on stenography and then what came out of it? Do you think you'll have a future as a stenographer or voice stenographer?
I thought it seemed interesting, like a good idea to look into it, since you don't have to have a bachelor's degree or anything. But I found out pretty quickly that I didn't really like it. And I don't think I would be a stenographer, but I'm not opposed to voice writing.
Cool. Yeah. Can you say a little bit about the difference between the two that you sort of learned about in the process of your project?
Stenography, you have to learn the shorthand and the rules. You use a machine to type. And voice writing, you just speak the words back into a separate machine and it transcribes it for you. You just have to learn a certain format.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was going to ask. Is it, you know, is there sort of a specific language for that? I mean, not different than English, but a sort of method for what you say and how to sort of transcribe what's happening?
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about it, but there is.
That's cool. I just got word that Chloe has joined us. Chloe, would you be willing to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project? Well, wait a minute. See, is Chloe, are you there? She's in the process of joining. Is that right? There's so many people here. I'm just scrolling through all of them. While Chloe's getting onboarded here, let me ask a question of Ananya. Ananya, I was really interested in knowing more about your passion for educating young voters. And I don't know why you think that's so important and what you think young voters need to know most.
Yeah, so at least for my project, I had a difficulty trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do. And at least in October, there was like, I want to say 22 candidates, and I was very confused about what everyone's policies were. So I wanted to learn more about each of the candidates. And then as I was learning more about them, I was like, this information could be really useful to my classmates as well as me. So I started writing like profiles on some of the candidates and their policies. As for young voters and like what they need to know, I'd say look at your sort of local elections, because that's the stuff that's going to be affecting you the most. And yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Another question for Ellie, sort of regarding your graphic novel. Is this something that you think you're going to develop further? Or would you maybe, are you planning to write your own and continue developing this? Or would you consider working with like another author potentially, where you were doing the illustrating for the graphic novel?
Potentially, yeah. I kind of stopped the, I guess, story that I was doing for the senior project, but I could see like in the future maybe going back to it when I'm more confident about my ability, I guess, to draw out, like I guess, communicate a story. But yeah, I'd probably also be interested in working with other like authors and stuff like that. I think that'd be really interesting.
Cool, that's great. Phoebe, a question for you. Have you, we know that you posted your lesson plan up on the website. Have you sent it directly to any other Waldorf high schools? I know you made some connections with folks at Hermit Island in the fall. Is that something that you've done or are planning to do to sort of spread the word about the research you were working on?
I have not given it to other Waldorf schools yet, but Dr. Reyes actually really wanted me to do that, and I thought it would be a great idea. I just haven't actually sent it yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. That would be, it seems very salient information for our high school students. And you did a great job conveying it in the language of the high schooler, so to speak. So a question, is there anyone I wasn't here when you all were in 8th grade. Is there anyone whose 12th grade project did relate directly to their 8th grade project? We heard a little from Isabella. Anyone else have a project related to that previous work? All new stuff. What changed in that time? What changed between 8th grade and 12th grade that sort of set you on a new direction? Anyone want to offer some insight on that?
I don't know. I think for 8th grade, I chose something that I was good at, not necessarily something that I really enjoyed in the long run. And I guess I just realized that being good at something doesn't mean you have to enjoy it or that it has to be a hobby or an interest.
That's great. What about 11th grade internships? Anyone? I know Isabella's again was sort of connected to that. Anybody? Sydney's I know is really different. Phoebe, what about you? What was your internship 11th grade? Did it have any connection there?
Not really. I shadowed a physical therapist for my.
That's right. That's right. Do you see any connection between those two experiences, right? The physical therapy practice and then working in a lab?
I mean, they were both to do with the body, and I was learning about different parts of the body throughout both of the experiences, but in my opinion, they were very different.
Yeah. What was it like going into the new environment of a lab, right? Sort of this professional apparatus, very different maybe from what you'd experienced, right? Either in that internship or in your science classes. Yeah, can you speak a little bit about what it was like? Was that intimidating, or did you feel like you fit right in?
It was very intimidating because I just felt like I knew nothing and I didn't want to say something dumb or something like that. But it was very, very informative, and I loved all the experiences I got. So
that's great. We have a question from a rising senior, and that is, what do you do if you don't have any connections, right? I know some folks were more intimately involved with an outside mentor than others. So how did you sort of, address that conundrum? Either how did you find a connection for a mentor, or in lack of a really strong mentor relationship, what did you do to sort of overcome that difficulty? Maybe I don't know who could. Okay, maybe Sydney could talk a little bit about that, and Darby could talk about that.
Darby, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about it. I didn't really have a very strong outside of school mentor. Mr. Meckley kind of became my mentor for a lot of the project. He helped with a lot of editing and just kind of inspiring me to keep with my project. But then I also had multiple outside sources who helped in smaller ways. A big part of my project was my trip to New York. So a lot of the faculty and the teachers there influenced my project, and then just family, friends, or other writers in my life also gave me tips and different advice.
Darby, didn't your 11th grade internship, wasn't it with the News and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was with the Indie Week, right, Darby?
Yes.
Yeah. How did that shape your sort of experience of the senior project?
Well, they were both journalism projects, and they both kind of helped me solidify my plans to be a journalist and pursue that as a career. But they definitely focused on different aspects of journalism. So for my internship, I was actually at a newspaper and seeing that side of everyday life, whereas in my senior project, it was what it would be like to not be connected with a newspaper as a freelance journalist and just working more independently.
Great. Okay, so here's a retrospective question, right? You're now at the end almost of your senior year. You're at the end of the senior project process. Looking back, what's one thing, and I'd like everyone to speak briefly on this, and maybe we can start with Mia and kind of go from there, but what would you have changed about your senior project experience, either the approach to it? No, it doesn't count. You can't say coronavirus because that's a cop out. So besides that, you know, in your control, what would you have changed about your experience?
That's a hard question. I don't know if I would have changed anything, because even though I started with something that I hated, it made me discover something that I really loved. I guess the only thing I would change, which isn't exactly in my control, so you might not like the answer, Mr. Meckley, but I would have changed the month, because for anyone who wasn't aware, I did my project as part of National Novel Writing Month, which takes place in November, and you basically have to write 50,000 words in those 30 days, starting on the 1st and ending on the 30th. And November was a really horribly busy time for me because I was studying for my last SAT test on the 7th of December, and I was taking driver's ed, and I was preparing a lot of college applications. So overall, I had like zero free time without the writing, and with the writing on top, it was basically my life became my computer. But at the same time, if I had done it during a less busy month, I don't know if I would have had the motivation. I feel like the pressure really helped me work because I was just forced to write all the time with no pause, and it didn't let me sink into writer's block.
Great. Ori, what about you?
I, apart from the Friday recitals that I did for Miss Guinan, I don't feel like there was enough performance in my project that I would have changed, since music is a performing art, and I feel like that aspect was kind of missing from my project.
That's great. Sydney.
If I changed anything, I would probably tell myself to have taken even more photos. I know I like took a lot maybe, but I still would have taken probably 5 times more at least, because whenever I go out and take photos or have a photo shoot with anyone else, I learned at least one thing new each time. So I would have just told myself to try different lenses and different compositional aspects that I didn't before. But
Great.
I can do that in the future. So
yeah, right. Keep building on it. Ellie, what about you?
I think I'd probably try using different medium, or not change it. I just guess include another medium in I guess the process of making it. So
Great. Izzy.
I would probably change the approach I took. I think I should have had maybe more of a schedule, or I should have mapped out what I needed to do better.
It's challenging to learn a completely new form of typing and language of typing. So yeah, I can see how if you're trying to develop a whole new skill, like you, like Ori, that really takes a high level of planning and discipline. Phoebe, what about you?
I've been trying to think while other people have been answering this question, and I honestly probably wouldn't change anything. I learned so much during this project, and it was so amazing for me. So
Awesome. Isabella.
If anything, and I really did love my project, but I would.
You muted yourself.
Yeah, you muted yourself accidentally. There we go. She's back.
I would want to make more clothes, because since the projects were due, I've like designed probably like 5 other garments and made one. I'm starting to make the others. And in a perfect world, I also would have wanted to do a photo shoot with the clothes I made, and potentially even a fashion show. That was sort of my overall dream.
Cool. Ananya.
I probably wish that I would have started the website sooner. It took me a lot longer. Like, I kept procrastinating the process of setting it up. So I wish I would have set it up sooner.
Yeah, it's a lot of work behind the scenes, as everybody got a taste of when we were just building our single pages. So yeah, taking on a website design like that is even, more involved. Darby.
The only thing I think I would have changed was just my expectations, I guess, for the project. I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to do, and kind of an idea of what I thought a journalist was and what they do and how many pieces I wanted to get published. And I definitely underestimated the amount of work that would go into that. So just give myself the space to kind of define it on my own and do that work how I saw was best, not in any other way.
That's great. Another question from the rising seniors. Did anyone, so when you were proposing your projects, you had to propose, make multiple proposals, right? So give some options for the faculty to look at and to work with you on choosing the right one. Did anyone end up using aspects from multiple proposals? Or maybe did anyone wish they would have gotten or chosen to do one of the other options? I'm seeing lots of heads shaking no, right? So this is a pretty focused group. What would you say, before we do that, I want to see, is there anyone planning to either pursue a degree or a career in the sort of field that they ended up working with in their projects? I know, I think Ori is going to be doing some music study at McGill. Isabella shaking her head. Can you guys talk a little bit about how this is shaping your vision of the future? Phoebe, you too, right? This hands-on experience. What do you guys think?
I can start. So the senior project absolutely shaped what I learned I wanted to do in college. So during this whole process, there was a lot of lack of inspiration originally. And from that, I realized that my inspiration comes from people and their stories, and that I really have to design a garment for someone specifically. And so then when touring colleges and design departments, I found myself in costume design. And so, the woman there, actually, she asked me, she's like, well, do you want to keep up with the trends and conform to that? Or do you want to express a character? And I was like, a character, duh. So that's how I actually veered towards costume design. And as of now, that's what I plan on studying, is costume design in the theater at Guilford.
Great. Other folks? Ori, talk a little bit about your future with music.
It's all still super unplanned. So I'm really not sure. I definitely want to keep on playing oboe and also violin. I think it's a decision that I'm still thinking about, like what to pursue, to what degree. Yeah, but it's all still super vague.
And did that affect when you were trying to think about college path? Did that influence your choices where you could keep that option open, or were you thinking about other things and that was sort of icing on the cake?
I thought of it, but McGill I think has the whole package. So yeah.
Great. Other folks, Phoebe, what about you? Is a career in the sciences in your future, or is that still up in the air?
As of right now, I want to do some form of science. In my future, I have an idea that I want to go into the medical field, maybe do like a pre-med track, but I feel like that could definitely change once I go to college.
Yeah, right. You got to keep the options open, right? I mean, especially with as broad and interdisciplinary an education as you've had at Emerson, it's a little difficult to sort of narrow down, right? When you've been in all these different things and you have so many talents, right? And that goes for everybody, obviously, in this group. Darby, what about you? How does this project shape the way you're thinking about, future career?
So my project was kind of shaped already by what I plan to major in and my career in journalism, but it definitely showed me kind of specifically in that what I'm interested in and also what I have to work on personally, like as a writer. The research paper helped me a lot developing this perspective on journalism. I wrote about journalism as kind of a fundamental aspect of a free democracy and how to preserve that and how that has influenced the country over history. And so that's something I definitely want to continue learning about and pursuing in college and developing that perspective.
Great. This is a question for everybody as well, but maybe we can start with Ananya and Izzy. In this process, the senior project process, did you find yourself sort of discovering, any passions or sort of getting excited about something that was surprising, or did this maybe, shed more light on what you really do find interesting, or like where you want to spend your time?
I guess maybe I discovered, or I was surprised to find that stenography could be kind of fun. I didn't really enjoy learning it, but there was something sort of fun about going through the drills and doing them quickly or something like that. But I don't think I found any passion. I figured out I didn't want to do that, and that's about as far as I got.
That's good. What about you, Ananya?
I think it made me realize that I was planning on going into political science at the beginning of the year, and now I'm like for sure going into it. I think that doing a bunch of research like about candidates, but also just like in general, like the political process, electoral college, how our government works, it made it like shed more light on that, and it made me more interested in learning about that in the future.
That's awesome. Ellie, what about you? I mean, you're headed off to Mass Art in the fall. Art is sort of your living and breathing. How did this sort of, harness or hone or direct your passions that you already sort of had?
It is it really kind of highlights how like I really need to work on like time management, which is something that typically hasn't been a problem when like drawing and stuff like that, because I'm motivated to do that because I like to do it. But for things that have like deadlines or all that stuff that I probably will have to encounter if I do like when I go to college and stuff for art would be interesting.
Great. Yeah, that's a good segue to another rising senior question. Any advice, either because you did it and found it very helpful, or because, dear Lord, you wish you had, advice on getting a head start on the project?
Have a
Yeah.
timeline and stick
Okay.
to it.
Mia, should I speak? Are you?
You go.
I would just say brainstorm like anything you're slightly interested in or totally interested in, but whatever it is, just write it down. Even if it sounds like stupid or you don't think you're gonna anyone that can help you, just write stuff down and cross them off and add more as you go. It just helps get your brain going on what could be a project.
And a follow-up on that, Sid, once you have your project nailed down, right, you said you wish you would have taken more pictures. How do you sort of get over that confidence hump to really allow yourself to just dive into it?
To dive into photography and taking more? Or
Yeah, or whatever your project is, right? Like, I feel like for you, there was some timidity in terms of like, oh, I don't know, how do I do this? And it's like, I wish I would have taken more pictures. So what do you think, what advice would you give to yourself or maybe someone else about being able to get through that? Because I think you certainly did by the end.
I think for me, when I wouldn't like take as many photos in the beginning, it's because I didn't know, sort of, I was still like unexperienced and I hadn't become as comfortable as I had later in the year. So for me, it was more of like a level developing throughout the year. That's sort of when I took more. And when my friends started helping me and we were collaborating, I had more of like a community and a teamwork effort that supported me and kept me a little bit more motivated than I was on my own.
Awesome. Mia.
Yeah.
You were going to say something?
Oh, just about the timeline.
Yeah,
Just make
timeline.
sure you stick to your timeline. Plan it out in advance. Don't assume that you can get something done in 1 week.
You got something done in 1 month, Mia, but talk a little bit about how gratifying that was to have that month be in November rather than, I don't know, March.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I'm sorry. I really am sorry to the rest of the class for saying this, but watching my classmates trying to get their projects done at doing big things in February and March, which is totally acceptable for a senior project, but it was still like closer to the deadline than it was for me. It was relaxing, relieving, also a little bit boring at times because I was already completed, but yeah, it was definitely much less stressful.
Yeah, and you found other challenges that you faced, with having that finished already. You were like, well, what do I do now? I have to leave this behind. But then you were able to, I don't know, find more work for yourself, when you sort of allowed yourself to. Can you say a little bit about that? Like, and we'll start with Mia, but anybody else, sort of when you hit a lull in your project, right, where things are going slow. I'm sure this happened to you too, Ori, when it kind of got a little monotonous or something, but how do you get over that lull to stay engaged with the project you're working on?
Well, mine would apply specifically to writing. If I hit a spot where I just really had nothing left to say, I would kind of like treat myself and let myself skip to like a good part, like a part I really wanted to write, because writing for me is kind of like watching a movie. So I would just skip to the part I really wanted to see. I wouldn't let myself do it always. I usually try to make myself write chronologically because it makes more sense and it flows better overall. But if I really couldn't continue with the next scene, then I would just start throwing all sorts of elements I loved, different fantasy plot lines and random imagery in, and just write some sort of scene that I really wanted to read myself instead of something that needed to come next.
Awesome. Other folks, Ori, how did you get through the low periods?
I feel like with any instrument, there's like a honeymoon period where you're super in love with the instrument and you feel like you're improving, and then you stop and sometimes you get worse. And then that doesn't really give you motivation to practice. So one thing I did a lot was that I would like FaceTime my best friend who's also an oboist, and that would get me through a lot of it.
That's awesome. What about you, Ananya, when you were running into, difficulty, how did you stay motivated? Did you use other outside sources? Did you go to something for inspiration? What kind of helped you keep going?
So since I waited so long to start my website, I was sort of where I needed to get moving. So I didn't really lose inspiration, or I didn't really hit a wall. It was more of just trying to get everything done in a crunch timeline. Like Mia said, just watching me quickly type up profiles and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. Did you stay connected with how other news sources were sort of narrating this information? How did that shape the way that you were thinking about what you wanted to convey in your site?
Yeah, I was trying to follow a bunch of different news sources talking about similar topics. I was just trying to convey the information concisely and unbiasedly. So I found that actually really tricky, trying to be unbiased and also making the information concise so that a first-time voter that would see my site would be able to understand that information and get the point quickly.
That's great. I want to know what everyone's favorite thing about the senior project was, right? So this could be about the process, that could be about your particular project. This could be about, what you learned or what you got to do. What was your favorite thing about this whole experience? That could be finishing, that could be getting Mr. Meckley off your back. Darby, go ahead, start us off. What was your favorite thing about this whole process?
One thing is just actually finishing a piece and having that complete and edited is a great feeling. But then I also really enjoyed actually making the website and doing the senior project page, and that kind of inspired me to make my own personal website where I could post my work and have an online portfolio. And so that was something I was really grateful for, and I'll be able to use that in the future to showcase my work.
Awesome. Isabella.
My favorite part was definitely my collaborations with Sydney. That's also the one I didn't know, I was going to end up doing these photo shoots, but I loved working with all the models. We would spend between 4 to 7 hours a day, per shoot. And so by the end of the day, these girls, some of them didn't really know each other at all, would feel like a team at the end of the day. One shoot, we ended up just having so much fun. We spent the rest of the day together. We went out, got pizza, and watched a movie. And I just loved that team spirit that we all had.
Awesome. Phoebe, favorite part?
I think my favorite part was just being able to learn from two amazing mentors. They're so knowledgeable, and it was so fun to be able to talk everything through with them when we would just sit at Weaver Street while drinking coffee. But also I loved how many new experiences I was able to have, going to a lab, a real university lab, and also being able to go to these outreach events. I'd never dreamed of doing that while in high school, and that was amazing.
Izzy.
I actually really liked making the website. I thought that was fun, especially instead of presenting.
That's awesome. You did a great job with your website, by the way. Ellie.
My favorite part was being able to see the improvement I'd made in my art. So.
That's awesome. Ananya.
I really enjoyed going to some of the presidential candidates rallies because it's nothing I've ever been to. And it was I also got to meet Elizabeth Warren, so that was a really big highlight for me.
I'm still jealous of that picture, by the way. Mia.
I think there's two parts to that, but quickly. I was always really embarrassed about my writing, like horribly embarrassed. Like you probably couldn't find my journals if you uprooted my entire room because I hid them so well. And I write and read a lot of fan fiction, which some people like to make fun of, some people don't know much about, some people consider extremely nerdy. It's usually like the butt of some joke in most TV shows. But this project kind of gave me the chance to stop caring about that and like lose that embarrassment. So my writing is seeing the light of day for the first time, and it's really relieving. And at the same time, I just liked writing certain scenes. There's some really cheesy fantasy stuff that I love, and I know a lot of people consider like a guilty pleasure and will never admit that they read something so wonderfully magical. And I'm happy that I got to write it, and I'm happier that I'm going to make people read it. And it's absolutely useless. It's just for my own personal enjoyment, but I'm really happy that I wrote it.
That's great. Ori.
I think same as Elliot. I liked seeing the improvement because I don't think if this hadn't been my project, I wouldn't have made the recordings, and then I wouldn't have realized how much I improved over this past 6 months.
Awesome. And Sydney.
I'm probably most proud of the way I improved with using any camera over the months that I was spent like practicing with it, especially with film, because that's harder to work with because you obviously can't see what you're doing. So I came a long way from using. I'm sorry, I don't know how to react to this.
That's okay. Thank you, Sydney. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think I want to say that my favorite part of this whole process is, I mean, I love all of it because I love you guys and I love being with you and seeing how your projects develop and how you lean into them or don't and then figure it out. And you hit roadblocks and you overcome them. And I'm just so super proud of each and every one of you and the work that you did in your projects. And I hope that you will always remember this as an excellent experience. And you all grew tremendously through it. So I want to invite everyone, this is probably going to cause some terrible cacophony, but I want to invite everyone to unmute their things so that we can give these guys a huge round of applause because they were amazing. Yeah, all right. Thank you all so much for coming and hearing from these fantastic seniors. And I hope that you will, again, visit the website, give them compliments on their achievements and continue to cheer them on as they graduate. Thanks.
Good night, everybody. Congratulations, seniors, class of 2020.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Guys are
Thank you,
awesome.
teachers.
Everybody, congratulations again.
Congrats.
Here.